These statements alone put Pedro's Valente's character in question. You simply cannot redefine the narrative at will when more data is being brought up, especially without admitting it that it was a huge mistake. And when you manufacture an idol based on propaganda to fool a generation of kids and teenagers and adults to promote yourself based on lies, exaggerations, and embellishments, this is evil. On November 20, 2025, Alexandre Lemos hosted on the YouTube channel Podcast Connect Cast a 3-hour and 58-minute debate between Pedro Valente and Robert Drysdale. And I'm here to react to mind-blowing parts of this debate and ask some serious questions for them, for the Jiu Jitsu community, and for you guys watching. I separated this video in parts. Part number 1 asks the question, is Pedro Valente evil, brainwashed, or naive? Like, I really want to know that. On part number 2, I ask, who actually owns Jiu Jitsu? Is it Carson? Is it Carlos? Is it Helio? On part number 3, we're going to talk about the Drysdale massive omission, which I was not expecting, but it happened. On part number 4, we're going to see that was Helio Gracie actually not weak? Like the whole story about the frail guy that couldn't climb stairs, is that not even true? On part 5, I asked what happens when Jiu-Jitsu becomes your identity, and that is not a good thing. On part 6, I talk about the biggest betrayal of martial arts history. Instead of reacting to the whole video and become redundant on the points that was already discussed, my intent is to pull out clips from the debate, have them translated in English so you guys can read it, and I'll make some points on top of what was said. My goal is to bring a new element of discussion that seems to have been forgotten or omitted by Alexandre Lemos, Pedro Valente, and Robert Drysdale. I really don't know why they left some things out, so I'm here to bring those things back. For the record, I never personally met Alexandre Lemos or Robert Drysdale. I did meet Pedro Valente in a few occasions. We were introduced by someone that was a close common friend from both of us, and we had some private conversations and interactions, but that's about it. Now, if you don't know who I am, it does not really matter at this point, since my intent is to make my points self-sustainable by itself. Whoever is making the point or challenging the truth should matter less than the truth itself. But for simple context, my name is Evandro Nunes. I grew up fighting on the streets of Brazil, São Paulo, and I got my black belt when I was 2013 under the Gracie team in São Paulo. If you guys know, it was arguably one of the most aggressive styles of Jiu-Jitsu that I personally have ever seen. I had a successful career in the competition realm, and you guys can Google me if you want, it doesn't really matter, but I immigrated to the United States, and I ended up getting my second black belt in Jiu-Jitsu at the Gracie Academy in the United States by Helio Gracie and his 2 sons. And this second black belt is my self-defense black belt, I guess? Not really sure. But it happened, okay? Got these 2 black belts from 2 different styles. One aggressive combating in Brazil, and the other one here in this so-called self-defense path, if I may. I live in the United States for about 12 years now. I had a successful career teaching Jiu-Jitsu in America, and in the recent years, I quit a 6-figure paying job actually teaching Jiu-Jitsu for celebrities and law enforcement officers and things of the kind at Gracie University. And I actually burned my black belt, 3rd-degree black belt, in protest of the corruption inside the Jiu-Jitsu industry. But like I said, whoever's making the point or challenging the truth should matter less than the truth itself. So let's get to it. On part number 1, I ask, is Pedro Valente evil, brainwashed, or naive? So right at the beginning of the debate, after the initial considerations, Robert Drysdale dropped an incredible quote saying this.
Mas assim, eu coloco que a verdade e a justiça devem se sobrepor à lealdade. A verdade e a justiça estão acima da lealdade. Por mais nobre que a lealdade seja, a verdade e a justiça são mais importantes. Tá?
And then right after that, he says this.
Assim, eu acho que a omissão é um desrespeito. Né? Elevar quem é omitido não é desrespeito. A omissão, sim, é um desrespeito. Então...
So my reaction to this is, wow. Robert Drysdale, thank you for putting into words such a beautiful statement that truth and justice should override loyalty. It is an incredible and powerful statement that the community of Jiu-Jitsu as a whole have to hear and internalize and live by it. And then he said, I think omission is a disrespect. And I also think that is beautiful. Very powerful. As a matter of fact, that's why I'm very confused on why he omitted such a massive element that we're going to be covering on the next parts. So then Pedro Valente makes his initial considerations and he says this.
Mas eu aprendi com o Helio Gracie, com meu pai, o valor da verdade.
So this is just for the record because Pedro Valente is here declaring his commitment with the truth. And then right after that, he makes this statement.
O Helio Gracie sempre quis que a história fosse contada da forma correta. E como que eu posso provar isso? Porque ele guardou, muito antes de nós sabermos que a Biblioteca Nacional iria disponibilizar todos esses artigos de jornais, ele teve o trabalho de guardar milhares de artigos de jornal em álbuns que ele tinha na casa dele, e ele dizia, esses artigos foram guardados para que ninguém possa distorcer a minha história. E eu sempre fui um apaixonado por história, sempre conversei com ele sobre a história, e muitas vezes eu fazia perguntas a ele, às vezes ele ficava cansado, ele falava, Pedrinho, quer saber a história? Vai ler lá os artigos de jornal, que está tudo lá.
And I'll pause here to make a note that it is dangerous to imply that because something is written on newspaper, it is defined as truth. So although there's arguably thousands of newspapers saying something that does not necessarily reflect automatically, which that's the implication, that that is the truth and that those are the facts. And as we know, that is not necessarily truth. I'm just reminding that and noting that here. The media is owned by people with selfish interests and companies with private interests, and they are susceptible for corruption. And then right after this statement, Pedro drops his first bomb. He says this.
E também é raro de você conhecer uma pessoa que esteja falando sobre a sua história durante 80 anos. Eu nem consigo pensar em outra pessoa que você consiga achar declarações dessa pessoa na imprensa durante 80 anos. Então é natural que algumas coisas mudem. Eu, às vezes, não me lembro nem o que eu fiz há 5 anos atrás. Imaginem 80 anos. Então é natural que a gente consiga encontrar algumas inconsistências. Além disso, muitas vezes a história do jiu-jitsu ela foi contada para promover a arte. E não havia uma necessidade de um rigor acadêmico. Era uma outra época. E também, às vezes, é um filho contando a história do pai. Ele escutou essa história na infância. Né? Essas histórias embalaram a infância dessas pessoas. Então, eu acho natural que essa história, às vezes, seja um pouco floreada, que existam exageros. E a gente não deve julgar isso de uma forma negativa. A gente deve entender.
Okay, so this is the first moment where we're going to have some serious conversations here because I'm going to kind of read over what he said right there. You guys saw on the subtitle, but subtitle sometimes is messed up a little bit because of YouTube. But basically, he's saying something like this, that it is natural that some things change. That some things, he doesn't even remember what he did 5 years ago. Imagine 80 years ago, right? So it's natural that we find some inconsistencies. That's what he said. And that is, I don't know, that just simply put the hair on the back of my neck up a little bit because what do you mean? It's natural that we find some inconsistencies. Okay? And then he immediately follows up with, furthermore, the history of Jiu-Jitsu was told to promote the art. And there was no need of academic rigor, academic accuracy. That's what he's saying right there. And he said it was another era. It was another time. It was other times, old times. Sometimes the son telling the story about their dad. He heard this story as a child. Look at the minimization right here. And this is now I'm like, what is he even saying in the beginning of the debate? Is he starting with that energy? That inconsistencies are okay, that, back the stories were told to promote the art. Like, what is even happening? That there's no need for coherence, academic coherence. Like, I don't understand that. And then he casually says like this, it is natural that stories are exaggerated or floreadas, which is basically embellished a little bit, that exaggerations existed. And then he says, we should not judge this in a negative light. We should understand it. Wow, Pedro. So this is my first point right here for you. Right out of the gate, he starts by minimizing the damage of contradiction, exaggerations, and inconsistencies. Is that what I just heard from a guy that 1 minute ago told us how much he learned about the value in truth and how much he's committed to truth? That does not make sense in my mind. So, like I said, this is my first question. Is Pedro Valente evil? Meaning he's doing this on purpose. He's brainwashed, meaning that he's not even seeing these things, that because he grew up, he's one of those childs that grew up with these stories rooted in them and embellished and floreadas, or he's just naive. He just doesn't know what he's talking about. Please help me here. This is like a sincere question at this moment, because when I was listening to this, I'm like, what is even going on here? Because in the context of history, I understand that. Some facts are hard to check. People died, people lie, people exaggerate, and I do get that. And it might not matter that much what exact year the Japanese landed in Brazil, for example. Like all these specific nuances of history, I get it. There's a little margin of error, I guess. I understand that. But in the context of martial arts, of seeking the truth and talking about the truth for the people that are in positions of leadership, people that are or guides or masters, some people even call it, right? Regarding the essence of martial arts, this is completely unacceptable. This statement to understand the incoherence and the exaggerations and embellishments, completely unacceptable in my position. And no one called it out. So here I am. To have this casual attitude towards false information about people that are influencing generations. Listen to this. For Pedro to have this casual attitude about this information that has been, like I said, influencing generations, that is disheartening, if not disingenuous. Like, what is even happening, Pedro? Why it's so casual about this? Remember, this is someone, Pedro Valente, that talks about the values of Bushido and the 753 code that he just spoke in this call about his commitment with truth a minute ago. And to be making light of a whole generational brainwash, to make light of this propaganda machine that has been like a tsunami over most of my life. Wow, this is wrong in my opinion. To make light of a situation like this, you can't make light of these things. People really believe with their whole heart, and like I said, this moved a whole generation of actions in people's lives. Also, is it even ethical? I don't know if that's the right word, but is it even right to start a debate that's about the facts and the history and about martial arts from someone like Pedro Valente that preaches a lot about values and the samurais and truth and all these things? Is it right to start a debate with this light-hearted attitude towards inconsistencies that misled a whole generation of people? People that, like me, that did not have the option to choose to believe or not. We didn't know it was exaggerations. We didn't know it was embellishments. So is it right to start the debate with this attitude? I don't think so. I think that's not okay, all right? And they will review these exaggerations in the next few minutes, and you guys will see it, but like that attitude, that casual attitude towards exaggerations and inconsistencies, I did not think the debate was going to start like that. So now you can see Pedro once again emphasizing the power of the newspaper back in the days in Brazil, and this is what he says.
Ebert, no dia da luta, em 1932, o jornal O Globo, né, que já era provavelmente o jornal de maior expressão, ele fez uma matéria de página inteira com o Helio Gracie, o menino do Jiu Jitsu contra o gigante da luta livre. Né? Então, você imagina hoje em dia uma página inteira do jornal O Globo. Isso normalmente fora do futebol nós não vemos.
Once again, if you just casually listening to this, that is implying that because there's this newspaper, the O Globo, which it is a famous newspaper in Brazil, that it is the truth, that it is ethical, that it is not being controlled by people behind it. There's no agenda and friendships and an attempt to push a certain narrative. You see, when he says things like that, he is implying credibility. And what I'm here doing is that removing the implication of credibility. Because being someone from Brazil, or even here in America, we now know better than ever that to trust blindly on what the media says is probably not the most intelligent action to take. So a side story right here, I heard from someone that was a Gracie family member. He was one of my best friends, and he pulled me to the side. And he was like, Evandro, just so you know, do you know what are the 3 main sources of power that I learned from my family growing up? And then I was like, no, you tell me. And it was like, it's money, it is the ability to fight, and it is the ability to influence the media and to control the media. And then he did a little smirk and he said, and we have all of them. We have the money, we have the media, and we know how to fight. And he didn't say that in a way of like, man, we're so powerful, we're going to serve more people and we're going to help society. No, it was a very different energy. It was a very selfish, like, man, I got all of this. Look at us. We are the ones, which, as you know, that ego virus can take care of somebody's heart and somebody's soul, right? Nonetheless, moving on, Robert Drysdale drops another incredible quote saying this.
A minha interpretação de leitura histórica é como a justiça, ela é cega. Eu busco, né, dentro da minha incompetência, que é grande, dentro da minha capacidade como historiador, que é limitada, a minha historiografia, eu busco que ela seja cega. Pelo mesmo motivo que você não julgaria alguém pela cor da pele, convenhamos que seria imoral julgar alguém pela religião.
2 minutos.
Só queria terminar o raciocínio rapidinho, posso, Pedro?
Pode.
Claro.
Convenhamos que seja imoral julgar alguém pela raça, cor, sexualidade ou religião. Eu vejo como ignorante julgar alguém de maneira positiva ou negativa por seu sobrenome ou sua nacionalidade. Como a justiça, os fatos é que importam.
But basically saying like this, I try, I search, right? It is my attempt that his interpretation of history to be blind because of the reason that we should not judge someone by the color of their skin, that would be immoral to judge someone by their religion or race or color or sexuality. And he says that it is ignorant to judge someone positively or negatively by their last name or nationality. The facts are what matter. And I think that this is a powerful slap on our faces inside the Jiu-Jitsu community, because we all did that, didn't we? We all heard someday a last name being a Gracie or anything, and then we positively gave some attributes, or we negatively assumed some qualities. Or if someone's a millionaire or not, or a black belt or not, or someone's a world champion or not. I believe that this quote that Drysdale spoke, it is a wake-up call and a gift for us to fight the natural human tendency to give credit to symbols instead of the actual truth of the facts. So that is my reaction to this. Drysdale quote aims to destroy idealization, and that is a step towards progress. So then Pedro says this.
Concordo plenamente. Eu acredito que a verdade é a realidade. E nós aqui, como pesquisadores, como historiadores, nós devemos sempre buscar a verdade. Nada está acima disso. E o meu compromisso é esse.
Basically saying, I completely agree that truth is reality, and as researchers and historians, they should always seek the truth, and he has a commitment with the truth. So we'll see that, right? I wish I could believe that. Like I once actually believed that before. I used to believe Pedro Valente's words, and I wish I could believe that nowadays. Nonetheless, let's keep going. Part 2 is who actually owns Jiu-Jitsu? Carson, Carlos, Helio, Gracie? Who owns it? Alexandre Lemos bring the second point for the debate. This is his question, and this is the initial reaction of Pedro Valente.
O jiu-jitsu que nós praticamos é o jiu-jitsu do Carson e não o jiu-jitsu que os irmãos Gracie aprenderam e ensinaram. Você tem 3 minutos para reagir a essa alegação do Robert e 1 minuto para repassar uma pergunta para ele. Valendo.
Nesse ponto, eu acho que a gente vai discordar um pouquinho, porque eu sou um grande admirador do Carson, mas eu acho que o Carson representa uma continuidade, não uma ruptura. Eu acredito que o Carson tenha levado adiante uma parte do jiu-jitsu que ele aprendeu com o tio, com o Helio Gracie.
So he's basically saying that he disagrees because Carson Jiu-Jitsu is a continuation of Helio Jiu-Jitsu. So therefore, following the same reasoning, if Carson Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is a continuation of Helio Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, let's say, why not Helio Gracie Jiu-Jitsu or Carlos Jiu-Jitsu is a continuation of the Japanese? Like, why is that not the tale? Or the tale meaning the legend, right? Why did it start right here? Why are we not talking about everything that came before? What time in history someone took ownership of Jiu-Jitsu? You see, Carson, arguably, and this is just a loose argument right here, right? But Carson was trying to take ownership of Jiu-Jitsu right here. But Helio already took Jiu-Jitsu. So now what Pedro is saying is, no, it's just a continuation of what Helio started. But you are not following the same reasoning, like I said. You can look back and say, no, Helio didn't start anything. He's just doing a continuation of what the Japanese started. Right? You see? But that's not the story that is told. That is not the legend. The legend is that Helio Gracie started. Because somewhere along the line, Helio took ownership of something and started to rebrand. And until nowadays, Carlos and Helio Gracie had started all of it. Which again, Robert will question this in this podcast, and he does in his book as well. But my point is, somewhere along the line, someone took ownership of something that has no owner. And they started to sell it as if it was their own. And my reaction to this is that I didn't know that. I really believed that Helio Gracie had invented Jiu-Jitsu. Even me, being a student from the Ryan Gracie team in São Paulo, Brazil, that was the main story that was told. And it was only after I was already a black belt, I was living in America, I had some peace of mind to start studying about history and seeing the different narratives to see that was not necessarily truth. You see, until then, I'm inside a bubble, fully indoctrinated by the mainstream agenda and the story that Pedro himself said that was told to promote Jiu-Jitsu. I didn't know that the story that I was hearing growing up in Brazil was being embellished and exaggerated to promote Jiu-Jitsu. I just didn't know, okay? I grew up under the ocean of that story. And at the same time, I was younger and less intelligent than today, right? Focusing on learning Jiu-Jitsu, which is beautiful. Jiu-Jitsu, the art of Jiu-Jitsu is beautiful. I think that if you're watching this, you agree with this. This is why this is so emotional and captivating for us, because we know how beautiful the art is. Nonetheless, I was focusing on competing, and which competing is it's a whole different brainwash that I'm not going to enter on this video today. I would love to talk about with Drysdale, because I can see that he has a very strong, maybe passionate about it, if that's the correct word to describe it. But I'm not going to enter on that right now. But the story of becoming a world champion would save my life. That's kind of what I was told, right? The Jiu-Jitsu save lives. That's the story that makes Jiu-Jitsu makes you a better person. The Jiu-Jitsu makes you a better father and a husband. So my point is that I was under that story, so I didn't even thought of questioning. I couldn't even come out because I was obsessed with learning more Jiu-Jitsu, more Jiu-Jitsu, more Jiu-Jitsu, never enough Jiu-Jitsu. I have to compete more, I have to win more, I come to America, I have to compete more, and then pay-per-view, and then world championships, and then and I just didn't see it. My fault, okay? So my point is that I grew up inside of it. I couldn't see it up until when I was training Jiu-Jitsu for 20 plus years. And I came from the other side of the Helio Gracie kind of thing. And I was still under the illusion of these stories that are being told for generations, guys. This is dangerous. These statements are dangerous. Especially the statements of like, oh no, it's just stories are being exaggerated. They're kids and talking about their parents, like Pedro. Pedro is one of those kids, so we have to be careful with the things that he says, because second, his own reasoning, the things that he's saying are exaggerated, right? He is one of the children that was being impacted by these people. Can you guys see that? It's very interesting the way that these things are unfolding nowadays. I'll come back to more of this later on this video because things get much worse. But to keep moving on, Pedro challenges Drysdale right now with this next question under this premise to try to discredit the Carson Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is just a continuation of the Helio Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, which you already debunked that, because if that is the truth, then the Helio Gracie Jiu-Jitsu didn't start anything. But nonetheless, his question is this.
Então a pergunta que eu te faria é a seguinte: quais são as técnicas que o Carson utilizava, principalmente no âmbito do Vale Tudo, que era tão importante para ele, como você mesmo diz, que o Helio Gracie não utilizava? Quais eram as técnicas? Por exemplo, ele usava chave de braço, estrangulamento, matalhão, pegar pelas costas, montar. Isso já existia. Então, para ser uma arte diferente, o que ele fazia de tão diferente?
Tempo.
2
Robert,
minutos? 4.
Você tem 3 minutos. Você tem 3 minutos.
Tá, vamos lá. Bom, respondendo a tua pergunta. Bom, essas técnicas que você menciona, Pedro, na verdade elas são universais. Elas não são da Academia Gracie, elas não são nem do judô. Elas são universais. Mas vamos voltar à Grécia Antiga aqui, se for o mata-leão, né, é a técnica que o Hércules usou para ganhar do leão, né? Vamos lá.
As you can see, Robert Drysdale doesn't even give too much attention to this because he's like, man, the techniques were not created by Helio. So basically, the point that Pedro is making, that Carson Gracie Jiu-Jitsu used the same techniques that Helio Gracie Jiu-Jitsu did, Drysdale is like, man, what are you even talking about? Because the techniques that Helio Gracie used on his Jiu-Jitsu are being used by the Greeks, are being used much like by the Japanese, by much older. They're who knows who invented them, who knows when that started, but they already existed. So the very point that Pedro is trying to do to discredit Carson is kind of being used against him. Like, can you guys see that? It's not that complex. That's why sometimes I'm like, is Pedro naive? Like, is he even seeing the things that he's talking about? It can actually be confusing. Now, I react to this because, once again, somewhere along the line, the narrative that Helio and Carlos created Jiu-Jitsu, or they took ownership of the style or the techniques or the creation of what we call Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so much that they call Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, right? As if it's mine. I own it, right? The Gracie family owns it. That's kind of the idea under that. For those under the narrative, like me. Like I said, I grew up in Brazil thinking that Jiu-Jitsu was created in Brazil. The basic assumption is that he created all of it. And these things there was little to no mentioning about it, that these techniques already existed. I didn't know that. I thought that Helio created all of it. I was like, man, this guy's the guy. So this was sold to me as a big revolution. So much that they started calling Helio Gracie in Brazil as a national hero, guys. Oh my goodness. So, who actually owns Jiu-Jitsu? Is it Carson Gracie? Is it Carlos? Is it Helio Gracie? Let me make something very clear right now. No one owns Jiu-Jitsu. Helio Gracie never owned Jiu-Jitsu back in the days. And clearly nowadays he does not own anything because he's no longer with us. Pedro, Valente, you don't own Jiu-Jitsu yourself. You can call it Jiu-Jitsu. You can call it Jiu-Jitsu. You can wear a black belt. You can wear a navy blue. You guys can do whatever you want. You can wear a tiny little gi that barely fits. Like, you can sit in front of your library preaching with eloquence about values and samurais and whatever you want. You don't own it. Your brothers don't own Jiu-Jitsu. Robert Drysdale don't own Jiu-Jitsu. None of the Gracie family members own Jiu-Jitsu. Robert has a lot of titles, wrote a lot of books, great research. You don't own it. The Carson don't own it. IBJJF don't own it. Rickson, none of them own it. They try to brand themselves. People even patent techniques nowadays, but no one owns the art of fighting. They don't own Jiu-Jitsu, and they do not own you as a student of the art. Part 3, the Drysdale massive omission. So Drysdale does his first apparently omission here, and he says this.
Essa cultura da praia, essa cultura de surf, que você aparenta ser um pouco crítico, eu acho que foi um dos motivos que o jiu-jitsu explodiu ao redor do mundo foi esse, né? Foi a maior exportação cultural da história do Brasil, foi o jiu-jitsu brasileiro, que é o ingrediente fundamental, é isso aí, é a cultura de Copacabana, é o açaí, é o hang loose, tá? É a maneira do Carson de ser, é a cultura da Zona Sul, que viajou o mundo com o jiu-jitsu como veículo, eu sempre digo isso.
Okay, so bear with me on this, because things are going to get a little more serious. Robert Drysdale, did you omit things about the Brazil culture and the real culture on purpose? Or you just didn't have the time? Or it was not pertinent at the time? Because the omission happened. And you talk about the culture of the Zona Sul do Rio de Janeiro. And yes, there's beaches, and there's surf, and there's açaí, like you said. But what else got exported from Brazil culture, from Rio de Janeiro, Zona Sul culture, from Brazil with Jiu-Jitsu as a vehicle? Why don't we talk about the crime? Why don't we talk about the drug lords in the favelas, the abuse, the social complexity of areas of Brazil as a whole even, right? The social oppression, the high corruption in politics and inside the government, the over-sexualized culture of Rio and Brazil, as a matter of fact, the poverty, scarcity mindset, the actual lack of moral standards, the inequality of Brazil, the impunity. Guys, remember this word, impunity. People do not get punished by wrongdoings. Brazil is notoriously known for that. You guys simply don't talk about it? You forgot about it, or you're omitting on purpose? Like, what is going on? Brazil is not beaches and carnival like most people see on the news. I personally do not recommend people going and traveling to Brazil at all. Like, this is a thing that I tell people that I meet in America. Like, it is dangerous. Don't go. They're like, oh, I want to go to Brazil. And I was like, don't go. Go to, I don't know, go to Hawaii. Go to North Carolina. There's a lot of places in America that you can go and it's going to be fine. Do not go to Brazil unless, like, you know a Brazilian that you can trust, okay, which is rare. People don't talk about that. Even if you have a Brazilian that you can trust, even then, going to Brazil is still dangerous. So when does the culture of Jiu-Jitsu, the whole spectrum of the culture of Jiu-Jitsu in Brazil and in Rio or in São Paulo, doesn't matter, gets brought up? Why no mention of the arrastões, right? I don't know if you guys know what that is, but arrastões are the people living in difficulties in Brazil, in the favelas of Brazil, in other places as well, or the communities, or whatever you want to call it. They come down from the hill, or from the morros, which we call, and then they just go on the beach, like hundreds of people robbing everyone with knives or guns or whatever, just grabbing everything that they can. Or they enter a store, they come in with assault rifles, trash bag, everyone put their things inside the trash bag, and then they leave. The population has no guns like we do in America. So it is part of it. The arrastões are part of it. What else? Evil crimes that happen for basic things like your phone or your wallet. You might get stabbed for your phone. You might get stabbed for your wallet so people can buy crack cocaine or even buy food. You see? And I guarantee that these three people, Alexandre Lemos, Robert Drysdale, and Pedro Valente, they know all of this. And if they don't know this, then that's a big problem because, like, where did they grow up? Like, they grew up in America, they never went to Brazil. That would be the only possibility for them to plead ignorance to these facts that I'm actually saying right now. This is all simple information about Brazil. Because Brazil is not like America. The police in Brazil is not like the police in America. In Rio de Janeiro or São Paulo or other areas of Brazil, the police is corrupt. There's corruption inside the police. It is a well-known fact of the country. How the police can stop you, like maybe pull you over, they can rip your license plate and give you a ticket. Or they throw a bag of weed or drugs in the back seat and then they arrest you, right? Or they even kidnap people for ransom of money. All of these things that I'm saying are part of the culture of Brazil. They're not all of it. I'm not saying that all police is corrupt and everything is trash. That's not what I'm saying. But it is a fundamental part of the DNA of Brazil. And to be left out of these conversations as if Brazil is all about hang loose and jiu-jitsu and açaí, this is, like I said, disingenuous and concerning. And that's why I mentioned this is a massive omission, and I don't know why none of the guys brought it up. There's also things about political crimes in Brazil, scandals, the privileged elite, which they work in a government, they get paid by the government, but they don't even work. Guys, I don't know if you guys want to go in a Brazil rabbit hole. I don't want to do that right now, even though I'm kind of going it, but it is an incredible place. Like, it's not for the, how do you say it? For the faint of hearts. Brazil is not for the faint of hearts. Okay, let's just say that. I wrote other things here like money laundering, things of the kind. But I think my main point is that Brazil is not for the faint of hearts. And also, part of the point is that not mentioning this dark side of Brazil or these things that are actually a part of the culture, especially in Rio and São Paulo, implies, look at this, not mentioning the darkness implies that the Brazil government and the society in Brazil works similarly to America. You see the problem of this? By not mentioning it, you guys in America don't know. So it implies it's kind of the same thing, and it is not. It is so different. So I don't get it why it is omitted. It is a part of the culture of Jiu-Jitsu back in the days and also until today. These are the problems that the Grateful Project tries to solve by teaching Jiu-Jitsu for free and teaching all the methods that I know to people who need so they can have a profession. And Jiu-Jitsu can actually benefit the people that really needs it. By the way, they need help, and I need help helping them as well. If you want to learn more about this project and learn how you can help, you go to this website that is on the screen, or you click on the link on the description. I'm talking with this almost this disbelief that sometimes I'm smiling, like I'm like, man, like this is Brazil. But in thinking about this, I want to point out how serious this is. It is sad, guys. It is real and it is raw what happens in Brazil. So we just turned our face to it and we pretend it doesn't exist. And then we sit here talking about the Japanese and what happens in 1930s. This is personal to me because we all eat acai here in America and we love it and ha 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 and it's so good and I want some extra honey and extra granola. But what about the reality of people who live in the areas, in the communities where the acai tree exists and they're explored for pennies with terrible quality of lives? Like why we're here in America laughing and eating acai and buying $100 rash guards and $200 geese. Like this is the culture of Brazil. It is and it was a colony of exploration. Okay? And things get exported from Brazil. That's just the natural way of things. And what I'm saying is that this is a sad reality that Brazil faces daily, even nowadays. So it begs my question, why pretend that Brazil is this nice place with beaches and carnival and acai and surf, and to sell this image that it is something that it is not? Because if it was all of that, we would be there, wouldn't we? But we're not. We got exported as well. We left. And my closing reflection on this is, why don't people talk about the darkness of Brazil? Why don't people talk about the darkness behind the people of Brazil? The darkness behind these famous people in the industry. Even here in America, famous people don't talk about the darkness. Why is it? The polygamy of the Gracies, having secret kids with a maid and things like that, the actual moral standard that these people would living by or not living by. Legends of Jiu Jitsu ambushing people cowardly from behind. Like why? Like with a metal bar like it happened in 1932. A story with Rufino dos Santos that I just learned about this like last year. I've been training Jiu Jitsu for 20 plus years, guys. Why don't we talk that the Gracie family is not what it appears? That has many dysfunctions and problems like other regular families. Why that is not brought up? Why is that not part of the mainstream story? And I'm not even here pointing fingers to try to accuse anyone, to destroy anyone. Like Robert even says on his debate somewhere, he says that this is not an anti-Gracie point. And I agree with that. That's completely childish to think that it's against someone personally. That's not it. And you guys will see as I develop my reasoning here with you guys. But my main point is, why are we afraid of speaking the dark? Why are we afraid of the truth? Because darkness and these ugly things that happen, there are truth. Because my conclusion is this: if we're not fully transparent about the realities of the culture surrounding Brazil in a big scope, okay, and how Brazil actually operates, like Drysdale omitted when he was talking about the culture of Brazil, we will for sure not be transparent on the personal level failures and the personal level shortcomings of these men that we're talking about it. We're not going to be transparent about our shortcomings. You see? To reiterate, if you're not transparent about how dark Brazil can be, which is not personal to anyone, we will for sure not talk about the shortcomings of Pedro or Drysdale or my shortcomings or Alexandre Lemos. Because if we cannot talk about the darkness of something in a broader scope, which is arguably easier, we will for sure not talk about specific darkness about these people that we talk about it today, which is the reality that we live today. Many of you guys watching this thinking that you know these famous names in Jiu-Jitsu, and you have no idea what they're doing on a parking lot of a gym or behind closed doors with their students. You know why? Because we are afraid of talking about it. These stories are endless, guys. 20 plus years of Jiu-Jitsu that I have, I heard a lot of stuff. I witnessed a lot of stuff. And I'm not even the older guys who know much more than me. I'm 35 years old. These guys have been around forever, and they're all pushing these things under the rug to protect Jiu-Jitsu, I guess, or to protect themselves. We'll talk more about this in a second, but the truth is that Jiu-Jitsu will not become less effective if the people in charge of Jiu-Jitsu are not samurais or moral deities. You guys see that? You don't have to be afraid of speaking about these people because the effectiveness of the art will not be diminished, will not be stained by these people. Jiu-Jitsu is Jiu-Jitsu regardless of what Helio or Carlos or Pedro or Drysdale or anyone did it. So although Jiu-Jitsu will not become less effective as an art form, if people knew the truth and the dark truth about the people that are in charge of the industry today, you know what would take a hit? Their personal brands would take a hit. So what I'm arguing is that these people are not necessarily protecting Jiu-Jitsu by omitting these stories. They're protecting themselves. Because if the truth was revealed, meaning if people knew that, for example, Helio Gracie was a convicted felon in 1932, like that is a fact, okay? I never knew that until last year. And I've been training Jiu-Jitsu for 20 plus years. That would have affected, right? Not my relationship with Jiu-Jitsu per se, because Jiu-Jitsu is powerful, but it would have had affected my relationship with my view of this national hero. And I would have the chance to make an educated choice on how I want to navigate this data. But these stories are not part of the mainstream narrative. And all the other stories, right, that the family keep pretending that does not exist about Hylian Gracie. You guys know about Hylian Gracie stories? Or all of us, right? This is not a personal attack. Again, guys, this is to shine light. Like, grab this light right here and let's shine on the Jiu-Jitsu community and the people. Let's shine on Drysdale. Drysdale, tell me your pains and your hardships and the things that you messed up in the past. Like, I want to know, like, as men. Pedro Valente, same thing. My failures and shortcomings, it doesn't matter. It's all about the truth, or is it not? So what is the truth? What is your truth, guys? That's what I want to know. You guys are leaders, aren't you? You're like, let people know your shortcomings. Let's be real and raw, because we all did mistakes. We all failed. The question is, do you want to answer for your actions with truth, or live in this lie that we live today, hiding behind our black belts? What I also see is that it is easy to push all these stories to the side, not talk about who you truly are and the darkness that you deal or dealt with in your life, and hide behind Helio Gracie and pump him up. So this is, to me, what Pedro does. He grabbed his icon, which is Helio Gracie, he pump him up, never talked about him or the person that he is. It's all about the story. It's about the symbol. And he becomes the representative of that symbol. And of course, he's going to protect the story. It's just natural human nature. And once again, we're going to talk about when Jiu-Jitsu becomes your identity and why these things happens. But moving on, Drysdale makes an interesting point in the debate where he talks about Roger Gracie. And he makes a clear distinction between public image of Roger Gracie and his personal life. He says, man, his public image is perfect. People should be, he doesn't use the word perfect. Sorry about that. His public image is great or something like that. He praises the public image, but he makes a clear distinction. He says, most people should be like the public image of Roger Gracie, but he says, I don't know about his personal life. Like, that distinction alone is good. It is a good differentiation. Otherwise, we fall into idolization. And that is damaging a lot of men. In the individual human being level, idolization damages us as people. So if you are committed to truth, like Pedro Valente said he is, how can we arbitrarily push aside part of the culture and push forward a narrative that is not complete? I feel this to be sad, guys. Because the so-called leaders of Jiu-Jitsu are afraid of losing Jiu-Jitsu, or afraid of losing their brand, or afraid of losing reputation. Now, the reason why this is so sad is because the very tool of Jiu-Jitsu, on its essence, is supposed to empower authentic self-expression. Like, that is the root essence of Jiu-Jitsu, in my opinion, which is to empower authentic self-expression against oppression. That's why we love training. That's why everyone, when we tap someone for the first time, we're like, wow, I can do something about this. I can fight to defend that in which I believe. Therefore, in other words, in the essence of it, it says, I can express myself authentically. Because if push comes to shove, I'll be able to defend myself better. And I have a more likelihood of success of winning a fight. You see? So the sad thing is that this beautiful thing is being used as a massa de manobra, or in English, like it's being used to manipulate people, to manipulate the masses as pawns. And this is my point right now. Stop hiding the darkness to protect your brand. Let people know the truth and let them decide by themselves who they want to train with. There is more here, okay? But I'm gonna move on and I'll come back to this in the right order because, like I said, things get even worse than this. Let's go to part number 4. Okay, this is a big one. Part number 4, was Helio Gracie actually not weak? Alexandre Lemos brings the next point for the debate, which is a Robert Drysdale quote. He brings it up so Pedro Valente can react to it. And right after, you guys will also see how Robert Drysdale respond to it. So check it out.
Pedro reage a uma fala de Robert. Robert falou a partir dos 2 minutos e 59... dos 2 minutos e 59 segundos... Não, das 2 horas e 59 minutos da entrevista dele comigo, que Helio e Carlos não tiveram grandes contribuições técnicas e que Helio era forte e campeão de remo e natação. Pedro, você tem 3 minutos para reagir a essa fala do Robert e 1 minuto para tacar uma pergunta para ele a partir da sua reação. Valendo.
Então, essa questão de que o Helio Gracie era forte, ela é muito interessante. O que é força? É força mental, é força do espírito, ou é força física? Então vamos falar de força física. A força física, ela não é absoluta. Ela é relativa. Por exemplo, eu sou forte fisicamente? Depende. Comparado com meu filho de 9 anos, eu sou muito forte. Comparado com o Robert, eu não sou. Então, quando a gente fala que o Helio Gracie era fraco, é em relação aos adversários dele.
Então, vamos lá. Então, fica óbvio, né? Essa foto de 1929, você percebe que ele tá com maiô de natação, tá? Então, você vê que ele é um sujeito, eu diria, até bem atlético, não diria fraco, eu diria bem atlético.
Você tem mais 1 minuto, Robert.
Tá, essa foto, se você olhar ela bem de próximo, não sei se vocês conseguem ver ela de perto, ela é alterada. Tá? Ela foi editada com Photoshop para dar a impressão que o Helio Gracie é mais magro do que ele é. Você vê que ele é até fortinho, né? Mas quando eles editaram a foto, colocaram um fundo transparente nas costas e no tríceps dele, para dar a impressão que ele é mais magro do que ele é. Vocês estão vendo? Consegue ver, Alexandre?
Consigo ver uma mancha aqui de...
É, uma edição de imagem, tá? Isso é claro. Eu não sei por que existe esse esforço, essa história é fantástica, pessoal, não precisa de Photoshop, não precisa de nada, a história é fantástica, não precisa mentir nem exagerar nada. Agora, eu não estou acusando, eu não estou acusando, porque eu não tenho provas, nem a minha intenção de vir aqui acusar ninguém. Mas, assim, no espírito de dar a origem, esclarecer a origem das minhas fontes, essa foto foi tirada de um documentário sobre o Helio Gracie, da página de YouTube dos Irmãos Valente. Tá? Então, assim, eu acho desnecessário fazer esse tipo de coisa. Mas, assim, essa foto foi tirada de um documentário na sua página, Pedro.
So this is an absurd. To hear Pedro Valente saying that the strength of Helio Gracie is relative, that what they actually meant is that Helio Gracie was weak in comparison to their opponents. This is, I don't even know what to say. You telling me that the whole narrative of Jiu-Jitsu, that Helio Gracie was this frail guy that couldn't climb stairs and this whole thing, that actually what you guys meant is that he was a very good athlete and that he was obsessed with Jiu-Jitsu and he was in great shape, like guys could see it, and he was, the narrative meant that he was weak against his opponents? Like that was relative? Pedro Valente even says something about, oh, are we talking about weak spiritually or physically? Like, man, what are you doing, Pedro? You're trying to passar pano, né? In Brazil, we say that we're just trying to almost like clean things up. Like, no, everything's okay. This is kind of what we meant. Like, this is not okay. As a matter of fact, this is a complete lie. Anyone who grew up in Brazil and even here in America heard the stories of this frail man who defeated the giants. That's the whole lore. That's the whole legend. That's the whole fable of Jiu-Jitsu. right? The man who could not go upstairs, like I said, without fainting, who sick all the time, that Jiu-Jitsu saved his life. And his opening statement was, if you remember the beginning of the debate, was to accept exaggerations and to understand embellishments and to, inconsistencies. If we connect the opening statement of Pedro Valente, plus this statement that he's saying that Helio Gracie was weak in relationship to his opponents, when we bring those things together, these statements alone put Pedro Valente's character in question. You simply cannot redefine the narrative at will when more data is being brought up, especially without admitting it that it was a huge mistake. That would be a different story, but that's not what he's doing. He's moving forward. He's trying to passar um pano. He's trying to, move on like nothing happens. And this is, in my opinion, cowardly. This is wrong. This is evil. You cannot do that. Now, evil, like, whoa, Evandro, calm down. Evil is a strong word. And yes, and here's my argument. Because Brazil is in desperate need of role models, guys, and examples. Culturally speaking, it is a country in need of that. And when you manufacture an idol based on propaganda to fool a generation of kids and teenagers and adults to promote yourself based on lies, exaggerations, and embellishments, this is evil, in my point of view. You create an illusion for a population. It is the classic bread and circus from the old Rome Colosseum. Give them bread and circus, and all in the service of the self. All in the service of those who push the false agenda forward. I grew up hearing that Helio Gracie was a modern-day samurai. That's kind of what the media was telling us. These are not simple marketing jargons, guys. These have serious implications. You're really influencing people. Then to grow up 20 years later after training Jiu-Jitsu, deep into the industry, my only profession that was actually successful on it, that I did for a living here in America, 20 plus years of consistent training Jiu-Jitsu in the competition realm, in Brazil, in America, in the self-defense path, multiple academies, meeting hundreds and thousands of people, teaching thousands of classes for all levels, kids to celebrities, all of this. And only last year, I heard the story that Helio Gracie was a convicted felon. That he went with his two brothers, I guess, Carlos and Jorge Gracie, and they ambushed Rufino dos Santos from the back and punched him and held him down and broke his bones with a metal bar. It's a whole thing, okay? Don't hold me too tight on this, but I'm pretty sure that these are the facts. And that's why he was a convicted felon in 1932. And then the story that is told after that is that he left jail because of the elite of Brazil, because of the important people wrote letters and signed in his favor, and he was pardoned by the president as if he was innocent. That's the implication. The implication is that he was pardoned because he was innocent, because it didn't happen like that, even though he was convicted. Now, what about the context of Brazil, of being a country that is notoriously known by corruption in the government, and more than that, impunity? That's what I told you in the beginning. Remember this word, impunity. Brazil is the country of impunity. This is not news. I'm not making this up. Please do some research. If you don't know that about Brazil, you would believe that he was pardoned by the president. So, wow, he must be a good guy. The elite, the celebrities, all they sign in their favor. Wow, he must be a good guy. You see? Now, without context, you imply that it would work the same way as if it works here in America. But Brazil, like I said, is inherently known as the land of impunity. And the context matter. It is notoriously known by when people with money or people with influence or fame, they can do anything and they get away with it. Go to the comments and back me up if you're from Brazil, and if you know these things that I'm saying, I'm not just simply making stuff up. That would be intellectual suicide for me to do something like that. This is real. And yes, I am questioning Pedro Valente's character. Pedro, this is not okay. This is not okay. And some of you might be thinking this. Who am I? Who are you to question Pedro Valente's character? That's kind of one of the questions that pops in our brain. right? You might be asking, who am I, Evandro, to question his character? Or you might even be asking, who are you, yourself? Like, who am I to question his character? So I'm going to talk about me only, okay? And then I'm going to connect to you why you could and you can question people's character. Even my character, you can question my character, all right? So besides being someone who literally grew up fighting on the streets, like I said, multiple street fights, trained my whole life under the High and Gracie team in Brazil, got my black belt there, competed on the high level of Jiu Jitsu, like I said, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't even matter. I'm just reiterating myself. I got the second black belt under the self-defense thing system under Helio and Gracie at the Gracie Academy in the United States. Basically, I succeeded on the street fights because I didn't die. Okay? I succeeded on the competition realm because I made a career out of it. I got a second black belt. It feels silly saying this, okay? But I'm just giving some context to you guys. I succeeded on teaching in high level for celebrities and law enforcement officers, making good money out of it, training jiu-jitsu from Brazil, 20 plus years, the whole thing. Besides all this nonsense, which my credentials, this is what I'm telling you right now, my credentials are nonsense. It doesn't even matter for my argument right now. Okay, it's not because I'm a black belt, I'm 6'5", and I'm this, and I'm all this. It's not because of that I get the right to question his character. Because you know what? They will find reasons to invalidate my jiu-jitsu position somehow. That's what they do. When I was only on High and Gracie team, they'll say, "Oh, you don't know the self-defense things." So when I got my second black belt, people say, "Oh, you don't know you're not hardcore casca grossa." But then when I tell them that I'm from the High and Gracie team, they're like, "Oh, dude, maybe you are. You actually are," when they see my competition career or they watch my fights or things like that. So my point is that they will try to invalidate, they'll try to discredit my credentials. That's their only weapon, to discredit what I'm saying. You're not a world champion 5 times, which I'm not, right? I'm not. I don't have the extensive titles like some and a lot of people, even Drysdale, have. Like, it's extensive credentials on the competition realm. Or if you do have, they say, "Oh, you're not a red belt," or whatever else, guys. So my point is that besides all of my credentials, the reason why I can and I am questioning his character is because I am a human being with discernment and a willing heart. Just like you, watching this. And I have the birthright to express myself authentically, no matter who is in the room. That is enough. And that is unquestionable. You cannot question my birthright of questioning someone's character based on the arguments and evidence and my personal experience and things of the kind. We need to break the symbols and the idolatry in the space and the industry of jiu-jitsu, guys. This is my attempt here, to awaken you to your own self-actualization on how important you are. And I'm talking to you, not Pedro, not Drysdale, like you listening to this. How important you are, not them. You, the blue belt, the purple belt, the white belt, the black belt. You as a human being that is empowered by the art of jiu-jitsu. You're not empowered by them. You're empowered by jiu-jitsu. Or not even by jiu-jitsu. Even if you don't know jiu-jitsu, you have this birthright, right? The jiu-jitsu attempt to enhance in us. So, Robert, you mentioned that you don't want to be a political figure. And I think I understand what you're trying to say. I don't assume. But also, I want to point out that you're still being political here. You say that you don't want to be political, but you are being political. Because I can see you holding back punches in the debate itself. I can see you hiding the truth. And that's okay. Okay, I'm not judging you. You're older than me. You have a different way of living life. You're a historian. You have this historian way of approaching things, and that's fine. All right? We need people like you to study and keep the credibility and go do interviews for major news outlets. That's all fine. But like you said, politics are needed in a way. But in my point of view, you're holding back too much. And I'm saying this for a few reasons, because I saw you holding back the punches, but also because in this interview, Pedro Valente says how hard they train jiu-jitsu at the Valente Brothers Academy in Miami. That they have hard training, they have duelos, and they have this hardcore jiu-jitsu. I'm not sure if that's the word he used. I don't think it is. But he does talk about training hard. And no one, not Drysdale nor Alexandre Lemos, is addressing the lack of proof of that. Like, come on, you go to the Valente Brothers Academy to train hard? Do you want me to believe that? Knowing all that I know about jiu-jitsu? And then when he says that, no one's going to say anything about it? Like, I personally experienced some hard trainings in my life. Although hard training is relative, right? What is hard training for me might not be hard training for Drysdale, might be not hard training for Pedro Valente. But this narrative that he was trying to push there, Pedro Valente talking about hard training, it's kind of funny, right? Maybe that's why you guys didn't talk about. Like, I'm not saying that they're terrible at jiu-jitsu. I'm not saying that he's a bad teacher. I'm not saying like that. I'm saying that hard training at the Valente Brothers Academy, unheard of in my life experience. Never heard of it. Makes no sense at all. And just for context, even at the Gracie University, where they have UFC champions and we go to private classes and we do hard trainings, and these trainings with these people that are actually fighting on the UFC, like many people would go there and visit, and I would be invited to some of these classes at times to train with them and to train hard. The training was kind of hard. I thought it was going to be much harder, right? But my point is, remember where I came from. I've been around a little bit. Less than a lot of people, okay? I'm not the most travel guy, but I came from High Gracie team in Brazil. We train hard there, guys. There was some hard trainings. Arguably even unhealthy. Too hard, okay? In America, I went to Romulo Barral schools in Northridge in California. Guys, that was hard training, okay? I went there one day out of nowhere. I got a connection with him, and he was kind enough to receive me there. It was a regular Tuesday, and I was like, what are you guys doing here? That was hard training at Romulo Barral in Northridge. I trained with the Avellan brothers in Miami for the ADCC camp that they were having. David Avellan was fighting that. Man, that was hard training. Now, to use the same words as if the Valente brothers have hard training, man, maybe I'm missing something big right here. But I don't think I am. Okay? And I'm calling that out. I'm calling that out because the guys didn't call that out. So the fact that no one calls him out on this is actually outrageous. Okay? At least call it out. Especially coming from someone like you, Robert. Because I don't know you. Okay? But I will guess, this is an assumption, that you have some hardcore training experiences. Some casca grossissima training experiences or training sessions. Not saying in your gym, right? But that you experienced that in your life. That's just my educated assumption. My point is that you can respect someone's work and you can still hold them accountable when they act or when they speak in ways that make no sense. For example, Robert Drysdale, thank you so much for writing your books. Like, truly. Thank you for your research. Thank you for your intellect. Thank you for the coherence and the intellectual accuracy with dates and evidences. But I will call you out on your omission. Right? Same with you, Pedro. Thank you for being such a scholar in many ways. Clearly high intellect with a great mind in many ways. Thank you for attempting to spread good values. But I will also bring your character into question. And question when you say that you guys train hard at the Valente Brothers. Because we cannot simply say that the culture of Rio de Janeiro was exported and the culture was hang loose, açaí and surf, and not mention the darkness, the sexual abuse, the drugs, the oppression, the political degeneracy that surrounds that same culture. And my question for you guys is, why are you afraid of speaking about the darkness? Life is beautiful. It's just snowing right here, right now in Michigan. Beautiful. Life is beautiful. But it's also ugly. Completely ugly and dark and saddening and disheartening in many, many ways. And that is the truth. Why are we denying half of it? And once again, these dark realities, they do not retract from the power and from the beauty of Jiu-Jitsu. The fact that these men in power had done terrible things and they lied to cover it up and they spread lies to enlarge themselves does not reduce the beauty of the art and its effectiveness. Because remember, no one owns Jiu-Jitsu. I'm not even going to call Jiu-Jitsu anymore. Let's call it fighting. Let's call it the art of fighting. Like, the art of fighting cannot be touched by our shortcomings. We don't own it. We don't represent it. The art represents itself. The art of fighting needs no representative. It represents itself. But people do try to own it. And under this illusion of ownership, you hoard knowledge. You manufacture and manipulate facts in order to appear bigger than you are. You hide truth and darkness in the name of loyalty, protecting a false legacy, which is, in my opinion, what Pedro is doing, and he's adamant about doing it. This is so important. These lies about Helio Gracie's size and his athleticism and him being a convicted felon in 1932 and stories not being told about the family, and this fact that Drysdale will bring even in this debate, and he brought on his book that they maybe never even learned from Maeda. All these things that we're talking about, the omissions, these are not simple lies. These are generational brainwash that is being used for generational profit, okay? It's being used, something that is pure and beautiful, which is the art of Jiu Jitsu, which, in my understanding, the essence of it is to free the mind and to free people from inadequacy. That very pure thing, which is designed to free people from inadequacy, is being used to imprison people with false narratives, to imprison people in probation. I know people that they tattoo the school names on their bodies. They tattoo picture of men in their skin. They wear their shirts. It says somebody else's last name. There's people I know who named their kids Gracie. They named their kids Ryan or Hyan or Helson. They named their kids. There's a lot of it. I don't know if you guys know that. There's a lot of it in respect to those idols. And you know what else happened? Their kids died. One of them, his son died of cancer at a young age. And they came to me crying in regret, with tears in their face and shame of having named their kids over an idol that now they know it is a false idol. Their memory with their own son is stained forever in shame and in lie. You see, Pedro, this is not a simple ha exaggeration that we should simply understand. This is not one of those. This is not a historical nuance that was missed or extrapolated. We're talking about the direction of people's lives and how they live their lives and how this exaggeration and these inconsistencies are done accidentally or on purpose, but they are misleading them. And this is my 2 cents for this conversation. I used to give the benefit of the doubt. Okay, many people in charge of Jiu Jitsu, maybe they don't know. We all have shortcomings. We're all trying your best, but I don't believe that anymore. Knowing what I know today, I believe that this is purposefully done. That it is purposefully manipulated. That the narrative is purposefully manipulated based on greed, based on profit, based on ego, self-promotion. Now I'm going to lose some of you guys. But I don't care. I'm going to say it anyways. I can even call this satanic, guys. Like, that is how damaging this is. And why? Because the idolization of self to the extreme that we witness in this industry is one of the pillars of a religion that is called Satanism. Not sure if you guys knew that. But when you exalt the self to the degree that we do inside the jiu-jitsu industry, this, purposefully or unpurposefully, is one of the pillars of the religion called Satanism. You just have to talk to one of these guys or watch these guys speaking. I'm not talking about Drysdale or Pedro necessarily at this moment, but just these people that just praise the self to such a degree. They are the biggest fighter that ever lived. And they continue preaching about themselves and telling these megalomaniac stories. And some people that don't do that with themselves, like Pedro, for example, I don't see him talking like that about himself. They don't demonstrate really big egos about themselves, but they do that with others. They use the stories of people that already passed and idols that are no longer here to enlarge themselves by reflection, to enlarge themselves by association. Because what they say is, that man is a legend. Not me. That guy is the legend. That guy is the one that did all these things, the best fighter that ever lived. Not me. But I am a representative of that idol. I'm not the idol. I'm just the messenger. But as a conclusion, I'm the guy, right? Because I'm not him, but I'm the messenger. No, he's the guy. Praise him up, but I'm the guy, actually. You see, it's a roundabout way of gaining credibility by association. And we all do, or did, I used to do that, I even might as well even do that nowadays when I mention who I trained under. We all do that. I train under so-and-so, so we get credibility through association. Look at where we are in the industry. It's very damaging, very, very damaging. I don't care who you trained under. I don't care. Don't shake my name. Oh, hi, I'm a black belt under so-and-so. Like, no, let me know about you, guys. Tell me about you. Who are you? And what do you stand for? And that is the message that I'm pushing forward here today. The point is that people like Pedro, seems to me that their whole existence is based on association of false idols. Since they claim to be the messengers, they have to protect the idol at all costs. Because if the idol breaks, then the messenger is also gone, right? It's another way of enlarging oneself through unquestioned association. And that is a problem. And we go back to the first question. Is Pedro Valente evil? Is he doing this on purpose? Is he just brainwashed? Is he naive? Since he might be a victim of the very megalomaniac agenda that was pushed into him when he was a child? We don't know. We don't know which one is Pedro. We might never know. But the truth is, whether or not it is conscious or unconscious or brainwashed or evil or naivety, the consequences should follow. Because here's the deal. If I'm driving my car and there's no right here, and I'm checking my phone and I just accidentally run over someone and I kill them, I should go to jail. Even though it was naive, even though it was a silly mistake, because the actions have consequences. And although it might not be evil, because I was just kind of driving and I hit someone, it's not evil in my heart to do something like that. It demonstrates a certain naivety. And what I want to say is that although naivety is not evil, it does not make one a suitable leader. Someone with naivety to that level, to that degree, is not a suitable leader. Like I was not a suitable leader to my students when I used to preach them all the stories that were preached to me without knowing for a fact or doing more research to know if those things were true or not. I simply repeated the lies of older men. All right, next point. Alexandre Lemos brings the next point, which is a quote from Robert Drysdale where he says, "It is a lie that Carlos Gracie learned Jiu-Jitsu from Maeda." This is a big one, guys. And I'm not going to answer on this one, but I will suggest that you guys should go read Robert Drysdale book. Just Google Robert Drysdale Jiu-Jitsu book and you see it. And just read it. You must read it. Okay, that's it. Let's go to part number 5. Part 5, what happens when Jiu-Jitsu becomes your identity. Robert Drysdale makes an interesting point, basically saying that it does not translate. You can be a casca grossa, you can be very strong and fearless in one area of your life, but it does not necessarily translate to everything. And you see, black belts or red belts or navy blue belts, they're not immune to the virus of fear, to the virus of being susceptible to oppression. And then right after that, Drysdale says that he also has fears. So thank you, Drysdale, for saying that. I also have fears, guys, just so you know. He's 100% right that it is not fully translatable like that. You got a black belt and now you have no fear whatsoever of anybody or anything. It doesn't really work like that regarding your jiu-jitsu skills. So thank you, Drysdale, for being open like that. And let's talk about that, Robert. Like, what are those fears? It is financial. It is reputational, right? It is the identity fear. Like, and what is that fear blocking? Okay, this is an important and interesting conversation because when a person's whole livelihood, finances, meaning of life, story, friends, identity itself is attached to something that is not the truth, they become a prisoner of it. That's what happened with people in Jiu-Jitsu. Their whole life is connected to Jiu-Jitsu. So they're going to defend these stories with their lives because their identity is so connected to the stories that if the stories shatter, I don't know what would happen. It's complete despair to have your identity broken. So my question for you guys is that, would you be willing to never train Jiu-Jitsu ever again if that meant to be liberated and to be truthful? Never ever train Jiu-Jitsu again if you would be free to speak the truth and to be truthful. Because when we fear the consequences, when our fear of consequences become bigger than the desire for truth, then the truth gets hidden. Meaning, would you close your school? Would you start a new career from scratch? Take a huge financial hit? Move your kids to another house, right? To get a cheaper mortgage? Would you do all of that in the name of truth? Pedro, would you start a new professional path from scratch today? From poverty, let's say. No inheritance from your dad. No accumulated money that you made in your life. No savings account. not having the friends that you have, the connections that you have through your jiu-jitsu life, would you let go of all of that in the name of truth? Literally start from zero. I don't know, man. That's a big, big jump. Because, like I said, when our identity is connected to that level, to that depth of a level, people will hold with that sometimes more than their own lives. So, are we committed to truth, or are we committed to our identity? Are we committed to truth, or are we committed to our black belt or brand that we built for jiu-jitsu, or with our job stability, or the finances? What are we committed with? This is a hard question. Pedro seems unfazed and unafraid, okay, when he speaks. But when I look at him, I think he's the most afraid of all. His smiles seem to be fake to me. When I see him in the debate and he's smiling, I'm like, wow, man, that smile does not seem real, even when I met him in person. And this is my opinion. Okay? This is my reading of reality. His eyes are stagnant. The eyes don't move with the smile. They don't seem to match. My thought is that his identity is so consumed by the stories that he tells that Pedro himself does not exist. I don't know who Pedro is without jiu-jitsu or without the story that he tells about other men. Somewhere along the interview, Pedro says something on the lines that he could have made more money on the Wall Street given his education. Right? He said something like that. It's like, yeah, I could have be financially better right now if I have chosen the path of Wall Street or something like that. But you didn't, Pedro. You didn't choose that path. You are now committed with these stories. So don't use an extrapolation that you would be financially better if you had chosen another path to prove your righteousness today. That simply doesn't work. This is my opinion about Pedro. I already said it. The fake smiles and the things that I've said it. And many people see it, but no one speaks it. Some of you listening right now might even be offended by my opinion. Why can't I say that his face looks stagnant to my reading when he smiles? That does not look authentic. Especially coming from someone that talks about being committed to the truth. I have that right to speak my mind. It is my opinion, period. And I say this because I was afraid of speaking up when I witnessed injustice made by black belts when I was growing up. I was afraid of quitting my 6-figure job and exposing my family financially. I was afraid of losing reputation and do not do any seminars ever again in the jiu-jitsu industry. I was afraid of losing the sense of meaning and belonging with jiu-jitsu and friends in jiu-jitsu. I am still afraid of being attacked and hated even more by haters as I record this. You see, that's a natural thing. But the difference is that I don't care anymore. I am free from being dependent of jiu-jitsu and the opinion of others. I'd rather die than to play the political jiu-jitsu game forever. I'd rather die than to hide behind my black belt and not speak my mind. Which there is a risk, just so you guys know. It would be naive of me not to foresee the possibility of people coming after me for expressing my opinions and for making people think. And for the record, I would not kill myself. I have never been so purposeful and so passionate about life like I am right now. There is a generational mafia behind all of this. There were gym invasions, people beating other people up, the president of Brazil bailing someone out. Okay, there is real life risk in shaking this generational tree of jiu-jitsu. Okay, there's a lot of people on top of this jiu-jitsu tree that when it's shaking like that, they're like, they don't want people questioning these things. That is guaranteed. They will try to discredit me. They will try to sue me. And if that doesn't work, then what? Don't you think that people try to kill other people to protect the system that feeds them? Maybe that's what Robert Drysdale is afraid of, right? Maybe that's why he's holding no punches. I don't know. This is a complete, pure speculation. So here I am doing exactly that. Speculating, speaking my mind, questioning, asking questions, receiving, connecting dots so we can all get closer from the truth. There's no question that there is a mafia behind jiu-jitsu, or what I call the martial arts matrix, okay? The question is, how can you get out of it? How can you get out of this oppressive industry and culture of jiu-jitsu? And maybe everyone is making these stories up, right? Everyone is after the Gracies or everyone after these people because they're jealous of their money, of their fame. I heard people saying that before. Okay, they try to discredit us. And one quote that a friend of mine told me one day, he said like this, Evandro, when villains start to behaving as a victim, you better watch out. And that's the seriousness of this discussion. My personal point of advantage is that I myself was involved in a scandal with a few Gracie family members from the Gracie University, and I exposed their secrets. I don't even like mentioning their names, so I'm going to put the link in the description, because if you have any associations with the Gracie University and you'd like to know the ugly truth of what happened there, the full unabridged confession and proof and data and everything is there on the link if you care about it. So back to the debate. Let's conclude this. Part 6. The biggest betrayal of martial arts history. Alexandre Lemos brings one of the questions from the spectators from the super chat, and the question basically asks about the book, which is a biography of Carlos Gracie done by Reila Gracie, which this book seemingly brings up a lot of stories about the Gracie family. Robert Drysdale's answer to this is basically clear and short. He says like this: every jiu-jitsu practitioner should read and reread Reila's book. I never read his book. After he said that, I want to go read it. I'm going to put the link in the description as well. And then Pedro's reaction: there was no automatic generated captions on YouTube, so I'm writing this with my own words. He said basically like this: I learned with my dad that we should always seek family harmony. In Japan, this was very important. People that try to break harmony inside the families, it had very serious consequences on the feudal period in the time of the samurais. One thing is to talk about history, and another thing are personal critics. This part is hard for me to read, so I avoid. And I want to point out this contradiction by Pedro by saying that he values truth, that he's committed to truth, but now he's saying to protect family harmony, family privacy in many ways, right? Due to what he learned about samurais and due to what he learned with his father. So which one, Pedro? Are you committed to truth, or are you committed to protecting privacy and the harmony in the family? I don't know how you can do both, because by protecting harmony, you'd omit or lie or exaggerate to protect privacy or harmony in the family. So how can you be committed to you can't. It's an impossibility. And this should be the ultimate red flag. The root of the problem here is that you select the truth that you share. But you select that based on what? Protecting family, not causing disharmony, or committed to the truth? Because the family members that you protect are professionals. They're leaders. They're school teachers. These people are not only your brother or only your uncle or only a cousin. These people are an icon that influence other people. In this case, this context that we're talking about, these icons, they influence thousands of people. So should we know private information about them? Yes, we should. He's not only family. And I do want to know who these people are and what did they do. Because I'm following them. Like I said, people are tattooing these people's names in their body and wearing their names on their shirts. So how can you separate facts from personal life from history? I think that this is dangerous and disingenuous. Robert Drysdale then asks a direct question, and watch how Pedro Valente answers. Drysdale asks, is courage a value? And then Pedro answers, if it is associated to a noble cause, to defend your own life, or to defend the life of other people, or to do good, then yes. If it is courage to do wrong things, no. Robert asks a simple, direct question about courage being a value or not. And Pedro mistakenly says that it depends on how it is applied, which just demonstrates lack of knowledge on the topic, which is concerning coming from someone who claims to represent so much philosophy, like he says he does. Courage is a value, regardless how you use it. Hence the complexity of moral codes combined with honesty and benevolence and authenticity and acts for the common good. But courage alone is, yes, a value. This is an absolute mistake to decide that courage is not a value if it does not produce good actions. And his conviction on such a wrong answer on a topic that he considers himself to be an advocate for values actually concerns me. It is naive, to say the least. And like I said, although naivety is not evil, it does not make a person a suitable leader. And to actually answer that what is the biggest betrayal in the Jiu Jitsu history, my point of view is that the mainstream jiu-jitsu is filled by vices. Everything is a joke about jiu-jitsu. Ha ha ha, to get likes on Instagram. The over-sexualization spread all over the industry. Craig Jones' CGI madness. Or OnlyFans for Gabby Garcia that I heard that they were doing on that tournament. Or white belt influencers. Men injecting TRT like there's no tomorrow. Fake stories to promote themselves, to promote a fight, to make money, and to sell pay-per-view. Lies that are happening for generations, and it is, in my understanding, on the DNA of this industry. Can it reverse? Can the whole industry remember the values and the essence of martial arts and live in harmony and justice? I don't think so. I believe that we're beyond this point, in my opinion. This is a personal decision that each individual has to make. That is why I created the Grateful Project in Brazil. And I'm teaching men how to fight outside the industry. And what I'm offering you basically is an exodus from the jiu-jitsu industry. It is, in my understanding, the only hope. Some other points from the debate, and even outside the debate, was Rickson Gracie tapped by a purple belt? Who cares? Was Helson Gracie, like he claims, I never lost a fight? Is that truth? Who cares? It does not matter, guys. The conclusion here is that no one knows for a fact the history of thousands of years of the fighting arts. We don't even know the last 100 years. And also, it does not even matter. Truth matter, yes, but you never know what truly Helio was doing in 1955. Not even by listening to himself. If he was alive, you would truly not know. The truth of your life is the immediate reality of your own life that you are neglecting. By losing yourself into fables and lores and legends and idols, you're neglecting the truth of your own life. I'm going to have you consider that each minute that you waste talking about champions or fake masters or graces or whatever else, or watching football for that sake, especially when you're following false information. When you do that, you give your power away. Meanwhile, they're feeding on your mental power and from idolization and actually benefiting themselves financially as you consume their products and you wear their shirts and things of the kind. Respect is one thing. Being inspired by a champion, that's okay. Learning from elders, that is fine. We all here learning from each other in one way or another. Thank you for what you guys did. Yeah, a lot of people came before me and they did a lot for jiu-jitsu and they paved the way so I could do what I do. I could not be who I am alone, right? I live in a incredibly complex reality as a human being, right? Even the paved roads, everything is somehow supporting each other in the jiu-jitsu as well. Like, people develop jiu-jitsu in many ways and I benefited myself personally. But also I take the torch of responsibility of my own life. Because let me tell you this, no one truly owns jiu-jitsu or judo pré-guerra. These are actually labels that they try to own, but even labels itself, they're only created for the sake of communication. But by being blinded by this label, you forgot the essence of jiu-jitsu itself, which is the empowerment of individual authentic self-expression in the face of oppression. To be who you truly are in the face of danger. Physical danger, emotional danger, political danger, financial danger. To be who you truly are in the face of danger, no matter who is in the room. And I will close by having you guys think about this. Who is the most important person, dead or alive, in the history of jiu-jitsu? Go ahead, say that out loud. Who do you think it is, the most important person, dead or alive, in the history of jiu-jitsu? And I'm here to say that you are the most important person. You, not them, not me. You are. You are the only person who will direct the direction of your life. You are literally the main character of your story. And you're here debating about the life of other men. They are not the main characters. Helio Gracie is not the main character. Pedro or Drysdale or Rickson, they're not the main characters. I am not the main character of your life. You are. You have a life. You have a calling. You have a body to take care for. This ultimate weapon that's going to last for about, 75 years or a little bit more, that you can use to fight for what you believe. You have a wife to lead and to care for. You have kids to inspire. And if you don't have kids yet, you will. Or somehow, the miracle of creation in this life-sustaining mystery that we live as people, like that can happen in many ways. You have services to give. You have gifts. You're gifted in ways. And when you answer your call with your gifts, you cause an impact and help other people in a way that you get financially rewarded by the marketplace. And that is leverage, right? You want to talk about leveraging and arm locks and leg locks and things of the kind? Your impact and service for others is leverage. You have a calling. You are a warrior. Your relationship with yourself and believe in yourself that gets clouded by idols and TV and numbness and bad food and entertainment, like that clouds you. Saying your own name out loud should make you feel motivated and excited. Like Evandro Nunes. This is who I am, Evandro Nunes. This is my name. I know the things that I stand for. I know that the things that I'm willing to bleed for. I cannot forget those things. Otherwise, I lose the light in my eyes. I lose the conviction in my words. You guys see that? I am the main actor of my life, not this guy that I've been following for 20 years. I am a man fueled by passion and fueled by values. I am a man fueled by shortcomings and flaws, but I'm committed to the truth. Dangerous statement, isn't it? Empowered by authentic self-expression, courage, bravery, and in my opinion, that is the essence of Jiu-Jitsu. My final claim is that the culture in the industry of Jiu-Jitsu is so destroyed, prideful human beings, that they got drunk into something that was so pure and beautiful, but they twisted it. If you're a purple belt or a blue belt even, leave the Jiu-Jitsu industry. You already know how to fight better than 99% of the people in the world. Therefore, you are already a world champion in that matter. Think about that. You know how to fight better than 99% of the world. And if that's not enough, being a black belt will also not be enough either. Being a world champion will not be enough either. Being a millionaire will not be enough. You see that? Because you are already a world champion in that matter. The exodus from the madness of the Jiu-Jitsu industry is the only hope that I see to reclaim your time back, your personal sovereignty, and start walking towards your very own calling. It might be to be a Jiu-Jitsu world champion, so then stay in the industry, if that is your true calling. But don't follow the call of other men, because that way, when you follow your own calling, you can live or die for what you believe. That most men I know, even black belts, don't even know anymore what they're willing to fight. They got hypnotized by the industry and they forgot their own calling, leading us to rampage divorce, cheating, vices, pornography, drugs, testosterone injections, scrolling numbness, apathy towards others, or worse, apathy towards yourself. But you're gonna go train Jiu-Jitsu, right? Hardcore, Jiu-Jitsu raiz, casca grossa. You see, the trade-off of your calling for training Jiu-Jitsu, it just doesn't pay off, guys. The return on investment is not there. Some of you guys are black belts and you don't even believe in yourself. Look at what they have done to us. You're a black belt and you don't believe in yourself. What will happen if you wait and you do nothing about these things that you're listening today? What will happen 6 months from now if you don't start living your own life? What will happen to your kids if you don't break this hypocritical, hypnotical trance of the Jiu-Jitsu industry? This is a call to some of you guys, a call to remind you of your own calling. I remember being angry with this, blaming other people, blaming Pedro Valente, blaming some Gracies, but it was all my fault. It is your fault listening to this, because we are the ones who believe the lore and believe the legends. We are the ones who follow blindly and ignore the red flags, because there is a certain safety following the masses, right? There is a certain safety on not saying anything. I know. I was like that too. And I was trapped by it, trapped by our own inadequacy and fear that allowed stories, false stories, to be pushed forward. It was our own fault. We were afraid of the visible oppression or the invisible oppression. We're afraid of being hurt on the mat or off the mat, or afraid of the gym invasions. Or nowadays what I see is that people are afraid of losing access to the art. Because if some of you guys speak your mind against Renzo, against Helson, Carlinhos Jr., or Horion, or Pedro, or your 10-planet master, you guys think that somehow, if you speak your mind, you lose access to Jiu-Jitsu. You see, you are dependent on Jiu-Jitsu. And because of that, you lost something that is even more important than Jiu-Jitsu, which is your ability to speak what you believe, to speak up with conviction. And that is the biggest betrayal of martial arts history. Not that they lied to us about Helio training with Maeda, not that Helio was a frail, skinny guy editing photos to appear that way, not about Helio's and Carlos' polygamy and sexual immorality with students, not even about Pedro trying to politically clean up all these lies and to shove more lies into us. The biggest betrayal of Jiu-Jitsu is when the very art that is essence, is the empowerment of authentic self-expression against oppression, is actually being used for control and for deception. The biggest betrayal of martial arts is that you, as a man, with a black or brown belt around your waist, is betraying Jiu-Jitsu itself when you don't speak up. When you cower in the face of opposition, because someone's rank, because someone's last name, or someone's size, or financial status, or jiu-jitsu skills, look what they have done to us. Look what we allow them to do with us. That is the ownership we need. We allow them. The betrayal of authentic self-expression is the ultimate betrayal of martial arts. That's what we did. We betrayed ourselves by betraying authentic self-expression. And once again, that is the biggest betrayal of martial arts. To live with passion and purpose and conviction is what I call life in every breath. And all you need to do that is what you already have. Jiu-Jitsu would enhance your probability of winning a fight. Yes. More money would enhance the quality of your life and give you a sense of security for food and shelter. Yes. But that is not it. The truth is that a life worth living is a life of good character and acts for the common good. Because if you agree with me that the essence of Jiu-Jitsu is the empowerment of authentic self-expression against oppression, then today in this video, of however many minutes this video was, we did more Jiu-Jitsu today than most did in the last 15 years of going to a gym and a Jiu-Jitsu school. We did no arm locks. We did no chokes, no talks about champions and medals and points, and who said what and who's going to fight next weekend. It always starts with you looking at the most important man alive in the history of Jiu-Jitsu. And that is the man you see in the mirror. That is it for today. If you like what you hear, if you want to hear more, click the links in the description, and all the love to you.